of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to tonight's planning board meeting. Please be aware of the fire exits. In the event of an emergency, please move in a calm and orderly fashion down the stairs, and please don't use the elevator. The meeting notes are taken by the secretary for the purpose of a record in minutes. So please identify yourselves each time you come to the podium, and please speak into the microphone. The meeting minutes are not intended to be a verbatim record, but only to indicate the sum and substance of the proceedings. The meeting workshops are being recorded by our ICAT department and broadcast on Spectrum Channel 1303. The board will follow the items in the order that they appear in the agenda, with copies of the agenda near the door. After the case has been called, the applicant and/or agent shall come to the podium to present their case. During this time, the planning board members will have the opportunity to question and comment on the case. For public hearing cases, the chairman will open the case for public input, in which anyone wishing to speak regarding the case will come to the podium, state your name and address, and direct their comments to the board. And as is stated on the agenda, during the public hearing, comments must pertain to the application for which the public hearing is held and be limited to 5 minutes per person. Once all public input has been received, the applicant and/or agent will be given the opportunity to respond to public input. Once all public input has been completed, the chairman will close the public input and the board will move on to a decision. No further input would be allowed at that point. Please call our first case on the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First item is case number PB 2024-04-02, request by Landtech acting as agent for Scott and Sandy Miller for preliminary and final site plan approval to construct one additional in-law dwelling unit on premises 300 St. Joseph Street in an RR rural residential district.
Good evening, everybody. Sandy and Scott Miller, 300 St. Joseph Street. So I think we've taken care of what we needed to take care of. We got a letter from Labella with a couple of things that they wanted changed, and we did that. We've done the perk test. That information is on the site plan. I think that was Monroe County approval of the septic system. I think that about did it.
For the public, could you just give us a real quick overview of what you're doing?
Yes, so we are building a in-law apartment, about 775 square feet, on our 6-acre parcel, which has been in the property since 1894. My mother will live in the in-law apartment, and our older daughter and her 3 children will move into the house that she currently resides in by the road. And so we've gone through the process of it's going to be on a footprint of a small former farm building, and then an addition off of that as well. So it'll be an L-shaped 775 square foot, 1-bedroom, handicap accessible bathroom. That about does it.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Nope. Thank you for everything you did during the workshops and getting to this point. Any questions from staff?
Kate Powers, Labella Associates. I just wanted to note that all of Labella's comments were satisfied, and in terms of review of the septic system, any Labella review would be consistent with Monroe County Department of Health. So if the Department of Health has signed off on it, then that is completely satisfied.
And for seeker, is this a type 2 unlisted?
It is a type 2.
Type 2.
Just type 2? Okay. All right. With that, I'm just going to invite the public to come up and make any comments.
Thank you.
I'm going to open the public hearing. Anybody who would like to talk about this case, please come forward. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Does the board have any other comments, questions, or would you like to move forward with a motion?
I'm all about a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
Ready? On PB 2024-0402, that the application be approved as submitted.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Was that you, Dan? Who
What?
seconded?
Nate?
Nate?
Nate.
Sorry, guys, thank you.
Oh, sorry, I did that on seeker. Give me 1 second. That was for final? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Yes.
Okay. That passes. 7 ayes, no nays, no abstains, 1 absent. Good luck and wish you much luck with your project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I just want to thank the town for all the help and all the camaraderie that we got through this whole process. The town has been absolutely sensational on our behalf, so I'd like to say thank you to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next case on the agenda is case number PB 2023-09-01. Request by Capstone Real Estate Development LLC, acting as agent for 550 Titus Avenue LLC, for preliminary final site plan approvals to construct 2 multifamily apartment buildings totaling 16 market rate residential units on premises 550 and 560 Titus Avenue in a mixed-use commercial district. I don't see Mr. Lasher
I
here,
don't either.
nor Mr. Thornton.
You want to just move this case till the end of the agenda?
Yeah, why don't we move this back and then we'll take the next case.
Thank you. Next item is case number PB 2024-04-03. Request by Knopf Shaw LLP, acting as agent for RSM Arundecoyt Bay Development LLC, for renewal of EPOD permits, wetland, steep slope, woodlot floodplain, previously granted for premises 400 and 500 Newport Road in a WD waterfront development district.
Thank you. Amy Kendall, I'm a partner at Knopf Shaw. I'm here on behalf of RSM Arundecoyt Bay Development LLC. With me, I have Steve Mancini and Mike Ritchie to answer any questions that might come up. Here tonight to speak about RSM's application for reapproval of EPOD permits for woodlot, floodplain, wetland, and steep slope for properties at 400 and 500 Newport Road. I know that you all have heard about this project several times. Would you like me to go into the background as I did previously?
I think that would be helpful for us and the public.
I agree. Okay, so the original application for this project was submitted in 2008. In 2009, this board adopted a final environmental impact statement. And I will note that at our workshop meeting, one of the questions that came up from the board is whether there was anything new with seeker that we might need to take a look at. And in looking at that, some of the changes that have happened in seeker, the most significant in my mind, is that scoping is now required as part of the seeker process. And this project actually did scoping back in the day. So we covered that at the time and took comments, a lot of comments from the public at that time. So in 2010, this board adopted the seeker findings statement, the site plan approval, the special use permits, and the original EPOD permits. Okay, so most of the work that has been conducted on the property so far was conducted under the original EPOD permits. So that work included installation of all utilities, tree removal, construction of 3 townhomes, which are not 100% completed, but on average 80% completed. And in the course of making those determinations, this board held that the project complied with the LWRP, the Harbor Management Plan, and Monroe County Pure Water's Master Plan. So that was all in 2010. And the work started after that point. After, I believe, the site plan approval actually got signed at some point in 2011, and permits happened after that. In 2015, the planning board readopted the seeker findings and reapproved the EPOD permits. That was done as part of a subdivision application. As you know, this project is going to be an HOA, actually 2 HOAs to start. And as part of the approval process with the New York State Attorney General, there was a determination made to split the parcels into the townhome section and the apartment section. So at that point, the planning board did approve the subdivision, and it was later filed, I believe, in December of 2015. And the zoning board also that year issued an area variance for density on 500 Newport, which is the parcel that has the the smaller condos units. Also, in 2015, the DEC renewed the freshwater wetlands permit. So the 2015 EPOD permits expired in 2020 during the pandemic. And at this point, my client is looking to move forward with the approval. We are right on the cusp of getting the Attorney General's approval for the HOA. We're in the very last stages of that, going back and forth. Basically no changes are proposed to the project. The site plan is what the site plan was approved to be in 2011. At the last meeting, we spoke to the Conservation Board as well, and they provided comments, and I'm going to let Mike talk about the Conservation Board's comments in just a moment. But I want to point out that RSM had previously provided a letter of credit to the town as required by, I believe it's 235-8 of the code, and the work was completed, so the letter of credit was released. And the developer has also applied for a renewed freshwater wetlands permit, and obviously that the work would be contingent on receiving that as well. And so, Mike, could you speak to the...
Good evening, Mike Ritchie from Costage Engineering. We did receive comments during the Conservation Board and then additionally within the Labella comment letter specifically about the landscaping and to review the landscaping standards to see how the plan that was prepared originally compared with the current standards. Our landscape architect in our office did do a thorough review of that plan and the standards. And overall, the one major change is the substitution of one invasive species, barberry, and replacing that with a native species. She did note there were some other non-natives that recommended those be substituted for native species, but on a whole, the landscaping plan met the standards of the town of Arundecoyt's requirements. And absent of, replacing those specific plants, no significant changes were needed to that plan. So if the town agrees with that, then I think that would be something they'd go forward with. The Barberry, I think there were about a dozen of them in total, were the condominium buildings, and they would be swapped out and replaced, at the time when that was done. So with that, I think the plan that is in front of you is consistent with what was approved, and I think what Amy had mentioned, there are no proposed changes, and the developer would just like to move forward and finish the development. So, thank you. We'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Sure. Could somebody, I'll open it up for questions first. Then I'll go.
How many outstanding permits do you still have to get, aside from the Attorney General's permission to begin with?
Just the DECs.
Just a DEC freshwater permit, everything else you've secured?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? I was going to ask Labella, could you walk through your letter? So,
Kate Powers, LaBelle Associates. So we provided a letter to the town on April 26th. So we obviously have comments for the applicant, but can I borrow yours again? Comments for the applicant as well as clarification comments as well. So comment number 1 is a clarification comment. So I believe everyone received the letter that the Director of Community Development put together as to why the site plan is still valid. And so I can further go into that if you wish.
I think for the public, could you just explain the
I can.
contents of that? So,
Sure. So obviously the town has codes. That is the law.
you might have to go to the podium.
Yeah,
then,
I'll
so.
just go to the podium real quick. Hello, okay. And so we look to the code to understand when permits, site plans, variances, et cetera, are valid, when they can be renewed, when they expire, et cetera. And so for a site plan, as the board already knows, but I'll further explain, a site plan is valid for 1 year if the applicant receives a building permit in relation to that project. So if a year passes by and that individual has not obtained a permit, that site plan is no longer valid. And then beyond that, a permit that is issued related to a site plan, that will no longer be valid if substantial work has not been completed related to that permit. So in the case of 400 and 500 Newport Road, the applicant came before the board. They received site plan approval. They came to the town. They were issued permits related to that site plan, and then they did begin work. Obviously, we all know that it stopped at a certain point. The project was not complete, and so they completed substantial work. Obviously, that is a little broad, but it's within the discretion of the Director of Community Services to determine what is substantial work and what isn't. I believe he provided in his letter, there was a list of all of the work that they have completed on site. And so, obviously, there hasn't been work done on that site for a long time, but at least based on the code language, the site plan is still valid. And if anyone has any questions, I can try to go further into that. Next is seeker. And so the applicant had come forward and said that in 2015 that they had sort of gotten a renewal of their site plan? Or no, renewal of the EPOD permits. And the board readopted the SECRA findings because they had noted that there was no changes to the site plan, and therefore they wouldn't anticipate any changes to the environmental analysis. And so I just have as comment number 2, should the planning board readopt the findings of the SECRA findings from 2009, all mitigation measures identified in these findings remain applicable and compliance is required by the applicant. So I believe in your materials, there's a long list of prior approvals. And so if you go to PB 0805-1, those are the 2009 findings, and those are what I'm referencing in terms of what is still applicable. Next is expiration of the EPOD, and so I believe the first iteration, or I can't remember exactly, but at one point it was 3 years the EPOD was valid for, and then another time, I can't remember if it was 1 or, I actually think I have it listed here, 5 years. So in the code, it does note that EPODs expire, and there is no further language that makes them further valid. It doesn't say that, if you complete a substantial work, then it's still valid. It expires. So I just wanted to note that an EPOD should have an expiration date, and in the draft resolution, it includes an expiration date that Labella put in there, but obviously it's up to the board's discretion, so they can make the final decision as to how long the EPOD permit is valid. Comment number 4, so Labella requests the applicant submit an engineer's estimate for town engineer review. In the actual EPOD section of the code, 23548, the applicant shall furnish the town director of development services with a letter of credit and an amount to be reviewed by the town engineer and attorney, which is sufficient to cover the costs of compliance with various specifications and conditions of the development permit. So usually we see that in relation to site plans, but this does call out specifically EPODs. You can ask for a letter of credit. And it is our opinion that that should be done, especially since this site there's been some starts and some stops. And the Commissioner of Public Works has requested that part of that include measures for soil stabilization. And so that would obviously have to go through the Director of Community Services as well as Commissioner of Public Works. Next was the additional approvals, and the applicant had indicated that they are just waiting on their DEC freshwater permit. Lastly, we have also noted that in agreement with the Conservation Board that all landscaping comply with the town's landscape guidelines, and anti-siltation measures shall be strictly monitored due to the project's location on the bay. So those are our comments. If anyone has any questions.
I have a question. This is on the Attorney General's approval of the condominium contract, and this may be
Okay.
more appropriate for Jeff, but if they don't get that approval, can that be apartments?
I don't know. I mean, I personally don't know. I mean, you could make it contingent. That could be an
Well,
approval.
I mean, that would be that the Attorney General would have to sign off on your condominium request, because I'm not so sure that we couldn't just build apartments there and just lease them without selling them.
Okay.
I don't know that there's anything in our code to stop it.
Sure, it would have to, obviously it'd have to match the site plan.
Yeah.
Right, it'd have to be the same, but our code does not, or it should not dictate who occupies a dwelling.
I'm not
So-
talking about the occupation, I'm talking about the possession in the long run.
Oh, sure. Like you're talking about ownership versus
Right.
renting. That's what I mean by who can occupy it. But yes, I agree.
It's okay, thank you.
So just a clarification, so how does that tie back to E-Pods that we're discussing tonight? I don't think it does it?
I don't think it ties back to E-Pods, except that the whole project is contingent upon these approvals. If they didn't get the DEC wetland or freshwater approval, it wouldn't go forward either.
You could also say that originally it was reviewed as
A condominium.
a condominium versus rental units, and it could potentially change the seeker
Right.
if people are moving in every year versus maybe long-term ownership, it may be different.
Right, but they're not presenting that tonight, that it's going to change. So,
Well,
No,
my
they're not.
point is that they don't have the approval yet from the Attorney General's office on this, but they theoretically could get our approval on the E-Pod tonight.
and I'm not following the concern, so help me. So,
What I'm saying is that they've applied to be a condominium project or two condominium projects. They're still waiting for sign off on that.
Right.
Sort of like they're waiting for sign off on DEC fresh water, right? So these are two things. I would like to make this approval contingent on both being satisfied.
that I get, but you
Yeah.
said something about changing the use, so that's,
It would not change the use. It would still be residential. It just would be heavier use if it went to apartment complex.
just
Because-
specify if that change is allowed.
Right.
It has to be re-reviewed. Okay. I think I'm following it now.
Okay.
Okay. Is that, we can do that? Okay, thank you. All right.
Thanks, sorry, Brent.
No, I got it. I just wasn't following the connection at first. But I would like the applicant to speak to the comments by Labella, if you could. You spoke to the Conservation Board, but I'm not sure if you covered all of these. Did you?
Yeah, generally speaking, the applicant doesn't have any objection or opposition at all to Labella's comments. I would pause on connecting a planning board approval to the approval of the Attorney General. I mean, we are in that process, and that has always been part of the plan, but we wouldn't want to stop a condo owner from renting it in the future, and I'm concerned about putting some kind of unconstitutional property right kind of issue associated with the approval.
Yeah, I'm not indicating that it would not give the property owner their constitutional rights by any means. This project's being presented to us as a condominium complex. You guys have had plenty of years to get the approval from the Attorney General, and perhaps you did, and it expired. There's no indication to me that that would be the case. What I'm saying is that approval from the Attorney General should be part of our process for, because that's what you've presented to us for you getting
And
the
that-
EPOT
and
permit.
that
I'm not
wouldn't-
saying that if I bought a condo, that I couldn't rent it in the future. I'm not doing anything for property rights. I'm just following through on what you presented to us and represented.
Yeah, and absolutely, like, we've stated previously, the site plan approval and all of the approval documents, including the FEIS and all of that, always contemplated the HOA. However, to the chair's point, it's not necessarily associated with the approvals that are on the property related to woodlots or wetlands. Obviously, the DEC has to provide the wetlands permit. We would just object to conjoining those two items. Be happy to talk
That's why we have
further
an attorney
about.
here. So,
Yeah.
And I would agree with that point as well. You know, my understanding is they're just here for a renewal, so I wouldn't, tie the AG's approval to that tonight.
But how about the
Alan, could you use your microphone, please?
I'm sorry, thank you.
Again, I'm just seeing them as separate processes. Versus, they're coming here tonight to get the EPOD approval renewed that was issued by the town, as I understand.
Okay,
So-
if that's all the authority you think that we have, then I'm fine with that.
I believe that's what I was trying to get clarification on, so.
Yeah, that was my question originally. I'm not onto their property rights by any means. What I'm saying is that if they need the DEC approval, and we're not going to make that contingent on this?
No.
Okay,
Alan, I think if you go back to the original approval here,
yeah,
it talks about, 54 for-sale residential condominium units.
Okay.
That's in the original
All right.
site plan approval, so I think we're covered on that.
okay.
Are there any other questions that I can address?
You had no issues with any of the other points that were brought up?
No.
Okay. Any other comments by board members?
I would just like to hear from the Conservation Board and their conversations to make sure that everybody is on the same page. I understand we heard about barberry bushes, but I think there were a couple others that folks,
We received written comments from the Conservation Board at the last meeting, and they had attached comments from their previous approval process, and we attempted to address those, specifically, compliance with the landscaping guideline, but I can certainly sit down and let somebody else talk.
from the Conservation Board? Sure, if you want to, yeah. I've read their letter. I just didn't know if the planting materials that were sort of discussed, and I know we're not doing site plan review here. I just want this to flow in a forward direction, so we're not getting any
Michelle, would you like me to do it? Would you like me to read it?
Krista is here.
Oh, Kristen, come on. Well,
Yeah,
come on up.
that's what I was saying.
Normally would ask you to sit at the desk, but since the microphones aren't working.
I was also trying to hide in the back.
Okay.
So yeah, we did meet with the applicants and we met with you guys last week, 2 weeks ago. The primary concerns that the Conservation Board brought up were things that were brought up previously, that in the past reviews under past approvals were about the site capacity worksheet. But as we understand it, since we're not changing anything related to the site plan, that doesn't really count for this. So our renewed comments were related to landscape guidelines, and we're fine with switching out whatever plants that are approved. We can get, as long as they're on the native lists, and those are going to be details that we can work out. And the other piece being the erosion sediment control measures. This is a large site and it's very close to the bay, and there's other sensitive features in the area, so just making sure that everything is strictly adhered to and the inspections are being done on a regular basis, and that the town has the access to go down there and make the MS4 inspections and recommend updates as needed. That's it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks.
Any further comments regarding that? So,
Mike Ritchie from Costage. I did mention about the landscaping comments, but just to reiterate the, second half of the comments, erosion and sediment control. Obviously, once new disturbances are created, the need for SWIP inspections will commence, and obviously erosion and sediment control is not a one-time thing, but an ongoing process to ensure that obviously no silt or sediment ever gets to the bay. So we will work with them, and if there's anything additional or above and beyond that was not on the original plan but is deemed to be needed to prevent erosion and provide stabilization, then we'll work with the applicant on that. Thanks.
so tonight is just the EPOD, there's no seeker at all, because it's already been done, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. You're gonna get a lot of exercise tonight.
Yeah, I am.
Yes.
K Powers LaBelle Associates. So This could potentially be seen as a type 2. Type 2, if it were considered a permit renewal, I don't consider this a renewal. This expired. This was granted in 2015, and now we're in 2024. There is no renewal process for an EPOD. An EPOD expires. So I believe that the board should go forward with readopting the seeker findings that were related to the original approvals from 2019. And then that can also sort of help ensure that all the mitigation measures are followed, as the EPOD is going to be attached to those seeker findings.
So would that be a condition of the approval, or would that be an
So-
actual seeker ruling, since we don't have all the information in front of us?
So that is, well, all of the seeker findings were part of your packet, and we do have a draft resolution that discusses the scope of the project and essentially the reasonings why you would readopt this, being that the site plan has not changed and therefore the seeker would be the same because you would be reviewing the exact same thing.
I got that, okay.
And then this also includes requiring that the applicant address town engineer comments, as well as we have here that EPOD permits shall expire in 3 years from the date of record of motion filed with the town clerk.
I got that. I guess what I was asking procedurally, do I actually have to do a seeker motion, since it was already done, so?
I mean, I would decide, I would essentially ask for a motion to readopt the seeker findings as well as approve the EPOD permits presented. And then, should that pass, then reading this resolution into record.
I planned on doing that. I guess I just,
So Bernie, just for past, and then I don't know if you want to follow, if the board wants to follow that route, but back in 2015, there was a motion made by a board member, seconded by another board member. The board readopted the findings of PB-0805-1 seeker findings as attached.
Resolution.
And I believe that was in the packet that was distributed to the board, and it had all the seeker findings within it.
I got that.
I will defer to Jeffrey, but,
Yeah, I think that, readopting these seeker findings, I think that would be appropriate.
I got that. I'm just asking, do I make it all as one motion, or is this going to be one motion with that condition? That's all I'm trying to ask. That's all.
condition of what?
Do I have to do a vote on seeker, separate from the other motion?
Yes, because you're readopting.
Okay.
So you do a motion to readopt the previous seeker findings regarding case number PB-0805-1. And then if
Then
the
you'll do the
board
vote
so
on both.
choose,
You'll do it.
pardon me?
Then do the vote on both of them.
And then another motion if the board so chooses to approve the renewal EPODs.
Okay,
2.
all right.
Does that make sense?
Kate, before you run away. At the workshop, we discussed possibly about a 5-year term to complete this project as a
Sure.
projection. So originally in 2010, it was a 5-year, now we're at 3. Is that can we do 5 again
You could
because of the
absolutely do
projection?
5 again. Apologies,
I'd rather not
I
do
wasn't
it, yeah.
here.
I just, looking at what we were told, it
It's
was-
more reasonable.
It is. For
That's
what
fine.
their timeline is roughly, based on the workshop, is 5 years, and we already approved a 5-year in 10, so.
Yeah, so just
A
whoever
simple-
reads it into
yeah.
the record, put 5 instead of 3.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Something that's just EPODs, it's definitely a little confusing. Okay,
So-
so I have some statement I'd like to make before I open the public hearing, unless there's any other questions from town board members before I open them. Okay. So basically, we're here tonight to consider the renewal of EPOD permits issued relative to the previously approved residential project at 400 and 500 Newport Road. The requested renewal is for EPOD permits for woodlot, floodplain, wetland, and steep slope areas. The review by the board is solely in consideration of those EPOD permits. The Director of Community Development has determined that the final site plan approved by the Planning Board in February of 2010 is still valid based on 235-86B of the Town of Arundecoit zoning code and is not part of the review being performed by the Planning Board. Any EPOD permit approval would be contingent upon the applicant obtaining all other applicable approvals, including an Environmental Conservation Law Article 24 Freshwater Wetlands Permit, GML 239 review, and DEC Stormwater Discharge Permit. While we cannot limit the extent of comments, only those relative to the EPOD permit process will be considered by the Planning Board. With that, I'd like to open up the public hearing. Anybody who would like to speak on this case, please come to the podium.
Hi, my name is Mark Fedzik. I live at 35 Mooring Line Drive, which is located just above the Newport area that we're talking about. I moved in there in 2020 during COVID, and there were 3 condos that were 80% complete down there in 2020. Nothing but weather has been beating on those things for 4 years. The place is an absolute mess down there. I know they recently put a gate up, but for the last 4 years, there's been nothing but people going in and out of that area, with obviously drug trafficking going on and all kinds of other stuff going on. There's trash all over the place. The place is a mess. Have any of you guys, board members, been down to this location?
Sir, just a limited comments.
We don't go back and forth.
Okay, I shouldn't ask you a question. I would recommend that you get in your car, drive down to this location. It's pitiful. Okay, that's point 1. So the 80%, it might have been 80% when they finished, but because weather does destroy buildings that don't get finished, I bet it's a lot less than 80% done. So there's wetland variances that permits were granted for that they're trying to reapply for. I'm very concerned about the variances that were given. The original plan that I read online was very heavy density for houses, apartments, condos. I know it sounds like we're only talking about the 2 or 3 condos that are there, but the original plan was for many, many more. I don't know if you guys considered the fact that there's been foundation problems at the Bayview Apartments, which is a similar location on the same bay. They've had to shore up the foundation on their condo units, and the work's been going on there for a long time. They had to re-fortify the shoreline. They've done all kinds of work. This is not, when they're done with their work, that won't be the end of it. The thing will probably fall into the bay. My only other comment is Newport Road is a very narrow road, and I'm sure this is not part of the subject matter of this meeting, but nowhere have I seen anywhere any approvals or disapprovals of how that little narrow road is going to handle the traffic that's going to triple or quadruple between the marina and all these housing units. There's no way that the town can expect that road to support that traffic. So I hope you can look into these concerns that I have. Thank you.
Anybody else who would like to address the town?
Thank you for the opportunity. Hello, Ms. Mancini, it's good to see you again. I'm glad to see that there's work happening down at the dock. Much appreciated. My name is Bill Hollenbaugh. I live at 48 Mooring Line Drive, and I've lived there since 1996, excuse me. So I've been through this plan before, and I'm really glad to see something happening again. As Mark pointed out, it's been quite a mess down below, but the docks are being restored, and there's that one townhome building with 3 units, as I believe. So what I'd haven't seen yet. What I'd like to see is what's the current site plan look like. Our objection, we hired an attorney to represent the homeowners association. I'm here today just representing myself and my concerns. At the time, there were 3, perhaps 4 condominium buildings, 3 stories high, 54 units per building, as well as the townhomes. There were supposed to be 10 townhomes, units. I believe there are 3 at this point. So the concerns that we've had is, as Mark said, traffic on the road. There was one fatality in 1998 because of that winding road where a car flipped over and went down the steep slope, landed on the roof of his vehicle, and passed away and was found Christmas morning the following day. I still have those concerns about traffic. The other concern at the time, and I'll raise it again, is the height of the condominium structures. At least at the time, are not harmonious with other structures on the bay. The tallest at the north end of the bay, just south of the current Irondequoit Bay Bridge and the lake itself, the tallest structures have been 2 stories high. And again, I'd like to see, sounds like we're seeing the same proposal again. And I don't know if there's an opportunity for us to take a look at that again, but it still represents a concern. Our views are significantly reduced. Those of us on the north side of Mooring Line Drive will all be affected if these units are what they've currently been proposed as 3 stories. That still is a concern. I don't know if there's anything that we could do to have that changed, but that's a concern that I have. I think that's all I came to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to address the board?
John Sepp, excuse me. John Sepp, I live on Mooring Line Drive.
I'm sorry, sir, what was the address?
46 Mooring Line.
46.
Yes. So most of my questions and concerns have already been brought up by Bill and Mark. Just to kind of further along with that, when I look out my back door, it's right below where my back porch is, and there are abandoned trailers there with graffiti all over them. A couple of them. There's fallen trees that haven't been taken care of. The existing units, if you want to call them that, it's more of a bird sanctuary than anything else, are all boarded up now. I've been down there personally picking up litter. One time last spring, we picked up 25 large garbage bags of litter, and within a few weeks, it was all back. I know that I've seen a temporary fence put up within the last couple of weeks. Maybe a coincidence to this meeting, I'm not sure. But for the last 10 years since the work's been stopped on those buildings, it's been nothing but just a hangout for people doing whatever they want to do. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else who would like to address the board?
Karen Miller, 131 Valley Circle. I left Rochester in 2011, and these were vacant properties back then. Moved back, thought, well, something must have happened, but certainly it didn't. I walk down there pretty frequently. This spring, there was people cooking out on the docks, set fire to the dock, burned a hole completely through to the bay. And then somebody tried to put the fire out with a hose from the boathouse, strip the gear, and so the water was just running. So I called the town, I called Seabreeze Water Authority, and it just doesn't seem like it was a matter of concern. So my question is, I don't have confidence that this is going to be followed through on. I asked for people to look at this. I don't like kids hanging out down there. So, I know this is about an E-Pod, I understand that, but I just say I don't have the confidence.
Thank you. Anybody else who would like to address the board? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Would the applicant like to come up and respond to some of the comments?
Yes, thank you. And just to reiterate, we are still working on the same approved site plan. There's been no changes. With respect to some of the comments, as we talked about a couple weeks ago, there was a significant vandalism event recently that required the units to be boarded up. All of the windows were broken out. The police were called. There was also a stolen vehicle on the property that had to be towed out by the state police. And as you probably know from the plans, this is a planned gated community. So we have gone ahead and gated it to try to prevent the access that led to the damage of the structures, and are going to be maintaining that security during construction. That was all of the comments that I had, unless the board had any other comments or questions, I should say.
Anybody on the board have any other questions for the applicant? Doesn't look like any at this time.
Thank you.
Board have any other conversation they want to have? Any questions for Labella?
I have a question for Labella. During the last seeker, is this project subject to the regulations in LWRP? And was that conducted as part of the last seeker? And is that still valid and everything continue to be good with that assessment that was conducted with LWRP?
One question I have that I don't know the answer to is, when was the last LWRP enacted or adopted, right? Because I understand what you're saying of when this was originally reviewed, it was a prior LWRP, or there was no LWRP.
And has it come on since the last time it was reviewed?
Well,
looks like there might be an answer.
okay, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm a town attorney too, so I have waterfront communities with LWRP, so I do know something about this. The LWRP approval is separate from the seeker process, and it happened as part of the 2010 approvals of the planning board. So the LWRP approval is in the 2010, the big long document with all the approvals and the special use permits. So that's where the approval is. It does not have to be reapproved with seeker.
Do you agree? I do. Okay, thank you. We got that taken care of. Oh,
Sorry, just to also answer your question, the town is in the process of redoing its LWRP. We started the process 2 years ago. I don't think we've finished it at this point, though.
thank you. Any other questions?
When are your plans for the start of the project? And can you start without the AG approval?
Hi, Steve Mancini with RSM Development. So we can start construction without the AG approval. We cannot sell without the AG approval. And then, so the plans are, as we get all the permits in order, that we would then start construction on the units. As we've discussed, in the last couple of meetings, we are working down there, working on the boardwalks, getting the site to the point so that as soon as our permits are all in order, that then we can start moving on the units.
Yes, Mr. Mancini, while you're up there, at the workshop, you spoke to some of the causes of the delays, because I've heard comments that, why is it taking so long, right?
Sure.
So are those delays behind you now, going forward?
They are. As we mentioned a few of them, there was the high water flooding that destroyed things on us. There was the barge that broke away, busted up the docks. There was, of course, COVID, amongst other things that, put some pressure on us. Also the AG deciding that we had to go into 2 different HOAs because of the phasing of the project. The AG takes some time to get some approvals through, as we all know, so that put also a big delay. But we are at the end of the line with the AG on this first phase of the approvals, and then, as we said before, we'll be working over here and then roll right in with them on the second phase.
And how long do you feel those phases are going to take going forward? Because I heard 5 years, but I wanted to confirm with you.
Yes, as an overall project, but as far as the phasing, we would anticipate that about 14 months on the first phase, and then could start on the second phase.
And in total, that'll take how long?
Again, we're looking at a 5-year mark.
5 years. Okay.
So,
thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay, so I'm going to try to do this. I'm going to make a motion on seeker. So whereas the Town of Arundequoit Planning Board issued a seeker finding statement pursuant to the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act on December 23rd, 2009, related to the subject property. I guess that was case number PB 0805-1. The motion is that we accept the same seeker findings as that case. Do I have a second, or anybody want to
second.
add? Okay. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Give me 1 second. Then I'm going to read this resolution for the second part. So this is a resolution issuing approval of EPOD development permits related to RSM Arundequoit Bay Development LLC. Whereas in April of 2008, RSM Arundequoit Bay Development LLC, hereafter the applicant, submitted an application to redevelop the former Newport House and Marina property on the west bank of Arundequoit Bay at 500 Newport Road in the town of Arundequoit. And whereas the applicant received site plan approval on February 22nd, 2010 to construct 4 multi-level buildings containing 47 for-sale residential condominium-style units, 9 townhome-style units in 3 buildings, and to maintain the existing 187 dock slips, the project case number PB 0805-1, and I'm going to repeat, whereas the Town of Arundequoit Planning Board, the Planning Board issued a seeker finding statement pursuant to the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act on December 23rd, 2009, related to the subject project. Whereas the Planning Board issued Environmental Protection Overlay District, hereafter EPOD permits, including woodlot, floodplain, wetland, and steep slope EPOD permits that were indicated to expire within 3 years from the February 22nd, 2010 approval. And whereas due to the expiration of the aforementioned EPOD permits, the applicant applied for EPOD permits approvals in 2015 for the project. And whereas the planning board readopted the seeker findings of PB-0805-1 and granted EPOD permits approval for a period of 5 years on June 22nd, 2015, known as the 2015 EPOD permits, and whereas in the issuance of the 2015 EPOD permits have expired, the applicant has again applied for E-permits approval, and whereas on behalf of the applicant, Knopf Shaw LLP submitted a letter of intent on March 7th, 2024, requesting EPOD permit approval for the project, and said project remains unchanged from the initial site plan and EPOD approvals issued on February 22nd, 2010. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the planning board hereby readopts the 2009 seeker findings, which we already did, and the mitigation measures remain applicable, and be it further resolved that the planning board hereby grants approval of the following EPOD permits: woodlot, floodplain, wetland, steep slope, and be it further resolved that such E-permits shall expire 5 years from the date of record of motion is filed with the town clerk, and be it further resolved that the applicant shall address town engineer comments issued by Labella Associates dated April 25th, 2024. Is there any other conditions anybody would like to add to that before I move forward? We're in the middle of a motion, so.
Just for the sake of clarity, I think the number of the condos might have been wrong. I just wanted to clarify that before you voted. I think it's 45 and 9, not 47.
Okay,
Sorry for the interruption.
that's okay. Town got any concerns with that number?
No, well, we'll look again, but it's less than 47, so we're not really worried.
Okay. Any other conditions? Do I have a second?
Second?
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No abstaining, we have one absent. With that, it's approved, and we look forward to the next 5 years. So, thank you.
Very much. What are we gonna do about this other one? I don't think we can do anything with this one. Can we do anything else? Let's table it.
Yeah, I'd like to make, the applicant's not here, correct? I just want to double check. Okay. So I'd like to make a motion that we.
Your mic on?
I'm sorry?
Your mic.
I'd like to make a motion that we table that, PB 2024-04-03 as the, oh, I'm sorry, I got the wrong one. Nope, that's, hold on.
PB 20230901, if you take that as an amendment to your motion.
Thank you very much. I want to get the right number. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Do I
I'll
get a
second it.
Thank you, Mr. Richards, seconding it. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes. Thank you. I don't see anything else on the agenda tonight. Is there anything else to present to the board?
I believe that I may have missed because I was talking. 550, 560 Titus Ave. I don't believe the applicant is here.
We just
Yeah,
adjourned
we
the
just-
case.
Okay, you did. Sorry. I was talking.
Do we have a number of people here who want to speak on that application?
I tabled it. It's been tabled. So,
There's a lot of people here who might want to say something.
Yeah, except we don't have a final plan.
we don't have a final
We
plan.
have
or anything to
nothing.
comment on.
Still be
I
heard.
apologize, folks, but the applicant didn't show. So, no.
They did not.
Guys, I can't entertain the questions. We did table it at this point. Thank you.
I do have a question. In regards to that, is this something that is, I mean, I know it says here is the final site plan approvals. Does that mean that there's going to be one more time to talk about this and then it's either approved or?
This one, we're going to ask them to come back to a workshop.
So for that next one though, is that going to be, that's going to be kind of a time to decide?
What if they don't show
Yes.
for the next, what if they don't show for the next one?
I can't answer that question until, I can't predict what's going to happen in the future. I would assume they're going to show. Thank you. I'm going to request that we do another workshop since we didn't get to see anything at this point. I'll let the town respond to that, so.
The notifications are sent within 200 feet of the addresses. Okay? So it goes with a circle within 200 feet. So that's how it's still a public hearing. It'll still be heard as a public hearing next month. It'll be added on to the agenda as a public hearing.
Got-
The next meeting, you mean? May 13th is the workshop meeting. And May 20th.
At the
May-
public hearing, you can
Bradley, you might want to turn on your
Hang on.
headphone. Yes, Larry.
May 13th is the workshop meeting.
gonna
These
do
dates
it.
are also on the website. They're posted up on the bulletin board here at Town Hall, just so everybody's aware. And you can call, my number is on the public hearing postcard. There should be a postcard, public hearing sign on the property. It should have my number on it. If not, it's 336-6017. My name's Michelle Nichols, and I can let you know. May 13th will be the workshop date, and May 20th will be the public hearing date. Due to the Memorial Day holiday, there won't be a week in between like this month was.
And just to be, advised, at the workshop, you're definitely welcome, but there won't be an opportunity to speak. But you'll be able to listen and see what the applicant is thinking, kind of give you some ideas of what's going on, so that when you come to the public hearing, you won't be blind. You'll have seen what he or she presented, and then you can give input at the public hearing that follows.
You can also call me and I can email the plans to you since it's a public hearing. I'm allowed to email the plans out for anybody that wants to see it, absolutely. Or you can come in and I can show you the whole kit and caboodle.
And you
Absolutely.
You don't only have to do public input. You can submit any comments you have to the
In
town.
writing.
And that's actually helpful for us
No.
to see all that.
No, he still needs final site plan approval.
They don't have to approve it next month. It's not that if they come next month, it's yes or no. They can still go on further. So if there's a lot of public comment.
Hold on one second. I'm waiting for the town. Any other business? Don't see any. I'm going to move for adjournment. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Aye.